Hello class, this is Nick. This tutorial is going to talk about how to take a set of diagrams or basically any kind of line drawing that you've got and how to trace it in Adobe Illustrator to get it cleaned up. The purpose of this is to make it clear to other people. So it's if you had something that's a nice sketch or that's a nice diagram, but you wanted to try to present it to somebody or maybe publish it, you want the line work to be really clean. You don't want it to look sketchy. You want the weights to be consistent. You might want to use dashed lines or arrows or other kinds of indicators, and Illustrator is a great tool for this. So what I'm going to do is I've got some drawings that are already done by Bernard Schumi, and I'm going to go ahead and open those up in Adobe Illustrator. So I'm just going to go ahead through this PDF here and look at an image, and I'm just gonna open up one of these. And what I'm doing is I'm just gonna kind of talk about like how you kind of trace an image, and a lot of this is going to be different than what I covered in 230. It's going to be dealing a lot with curves and things. So let's go ahead and lock this. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and fade it a bit first. Not that much. Oops. I lost my selection here. Okay. Oh, must have deleted it. There we go. Okay. Let's maybe just 50%. Lock it. Go to a lines layer, and as you're working with these things, I mean, you want to be wary of the kind of scale that you scan them in at. You can always rescale them later because these are vectors, but it helps to kind of work at 1:1. Right now, this is just these aren't exactly mine, but you might work by making sure that for your diagrams, this is exactly a 3x3. You can tell from this example that the diagrams we did are kind of inspired by these diagrams by like Bernard Schumi. So we're working with these kinds of squares. To make a square or any shape that's evenly, what do I want to say? That's evenly weighted. So if instead of making a rectangle, if you want to make something that's a square, or if you want to make a perfect circle, you want to hold down Shift as you make it, and that's going to constrain it. And so I can make that and actually find out that this is not quite perfect in the diagram. Remember when I press D, if you want to just make a black line with a white background. And now I've got my piece. This whole thing is actually rather small, so I'm gonna go ahead and change it a little bit. Yeah, my artboards are tiny. Let's make this a good 11 by 17. I'm gonna just go ahead and scale everything, holding Shift down as I transform this. All right, that's better. So I can tell by my line weight that this is just too small. Make my weight be 0.5 millimeter for now. I can work on weights later, the actual weight. What I want to do is develop the lines first and then kind of sort those out. So you use the pen tool, and I can, if I hold down the Shift key, it's going to restrict it to 90-degree or 45-degree increments. Okay, and then once I've got this, I have a curve, right? So what I can do is I'm looking for the peak of the curve, and I'm going to click and drag the Bezier handles, and then I'm going to go and find the next one and click and drag. And basically try to find that again. You want to try to do it with as few points as possible. It's just going to make for a smoother curve. And as I mentioned before, this takes a lot of practice to get right. So don't be afraid if you have too many kinks in it or if it takes you a little while. I try to work on it pretty slowly, just so that you're actually getting it right. And then once you've got that, if I want to, so now I'm still kind of in this curve mode. If I want to go back to a straight line, I just click on the endpoint, and now I'm back to straight line. And then when I'm done, I can just go ahead and I can press V, and that'll finish it. That's my line. So once I've made it, if I don't really like what happened in here. I think this could be better. So I can go ahead and I'm gonna open up my pen tool. I'm gonna go over this little corner here with my mouse, and when I let go, it'll pop out. And then I can use the anchor point tool to remove this anchor point. I can use the direct selection tool to move the anchor to a new position, and then I can kind of like manipulate that a little bit to try to get a better curve out of this whole thing. You can always go back in and kind of reorganize it. So the nice thing about working in vectors, and the difference between working in something like this and working in AutoCAD, right, is that you really have the ability to kind of artistically adjust these until you get what you want. I find it a lot more satisfying. You're not really calculating this, you're sculpting it. Sometimes the snaps can kind of get in the way. You can go ahead and turn off those smart guides, and then that'll keep things from arbitrarily kind of snapping in space. That's not bad. If you have something, I mean, I would always try to use the pen tool and to just really kind of carefully, manage each of these lines here. You want something that has a smooth curvature. Again, I'm pressing V to stop this. It's the same thing as clicking up here. And then I go back again with my direct selection tool. And actually I feel like I can get away with deleting this one. Come on. Sometimes that warning will come up. You can usually ignore it because you know what you're trying to do. That's not bad. What you want to avoid doing is using something like the pencil tool and saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna draw this line." So it just doesn't look the same. It's not as clean. You want to be in control of this. Now, if you want to use an arrow for something like I have here, I can go in and I can actually apply an arrowhead. There's built-in arrows, and if you want to make it bigger, just play with the scale of it. That'll actually give you that ability. And you can experiment. You could also draw it if you want to. But I'm just showing you that these are options available for you when you're trying to diagram something. Let me go ahead and play with the scale of this a little bit more. See, the scale, if you increase the scale, it'll actually increase the size of the arrowhead. So you got to be careful with that. And then you can make it a dashed line. And that's not too bad. You can also change you can play with the gaps versus the dashes. That's not too bad. This I don't like here. These are, you want to experiment with these settings. These just talk about how it turns a corner. It's not too bad. You can, if you have a pattern that you find that you like, you can use the eyedropper and kind of grab that from something. And so this is relatively close, but I think we can do better. And again, I don't like the way it rounds a corner, so I'm probably gonna make that selection there. There we go. Not too bad. Let's go ahead and finish the last one. Again, put a kink in it. Hold down the shift key, hold down the shift key. Put a kink in it. Shift. And if you hold down the shift key as you're adjusting the Bezier, you can get an arc that's a little bit more pure. Just experiment with that. And then V, and we're done. Use the eyedropper. Let's take a look at that. Okay, not bad. Might experiment with the corners a little bit. If you find that you like the look of the rounded corners more, just be consistent though. Yeah, that's a little bit softer. Let's kind of zoom out and take a look at that. Part of it is it's not just getting the lines to match up, but it's about getting the feel of the drawing. And so we might experiment with a little bit thicker weight here. And then of course if we increase the weight, we probably want to increase the gaps in the lines a little bit. And again, it's more art than science, as I like to say. But that's not too bad. And again, Illustrator gives us this nice like consistency. The drawing, it's just very clean, and it'll print in a really nice and like clear way. It's better than anything you could probably draft. So just kind of experiment with that a little bit. Should kind of feel like it wants to be maybe a little bit thinner. Okay, so that's one. Okay, and then you might run up against something. Let me look at the document setup again. I feel like, yeah, the artboard is in the way. There we go. Yeah, I accidentally made a second artboard. Okay, then you're like, wow, okay, how would I do something like this? Well, you really want to break it down into a series of smaller steps. You want to try to work as intelligently as you can. So you can find things that where you know these are circles. So this is just holding down the key, the like shift key for that. Ellipse. These might be pretty fine lines. And then I can use the alt copy method to kind of populate this drawing. And then a shift alt copy for these kinds of things. And then once you've got a group, you can shift alt copy those. Yeah. Roughly the same thing here. Do another shift copy. And then if you've got a group, right, again, just kind of alt copy those. The computer excels at making copies. And so you always want to take advantage of that. And then if you've got this here, right, you can take this group, I can transform it, and I can say reflect it across the vertical, and I make a copy of that. And then I've got this set roughly over here. So I'm really exploiting that ability. Okay, let's take a look at these paths here. These are pretty wicked. You don't have to trace the inside and the outside of it. Let's just go ahead and draw a line here. Try to draw a line. Draw a line that's the center of these. Close it with a V. Draw another line, close it. And here I'm just going to make an arbitrary decision to branch off. You get the principle of it in a minute here. Close it. Okay, good enough. Got a few of these here. So take these lines, and I'm actually going to go ahead and make these just like a hairline, like a very fine line, so that I can illustrate, no pun intended, the principle I'm trying to show. Let's grab this set, and you can say object, path, outline, stroke. Oops, it's actually not what I want. Sorry. Path, offset path, and you can offset it. You can say, okay, I want to offset that 0.01. And let's just kind of play with it until we get it right here. But you can see what I'm trying to do here. Pretty good. Okay, so I say okay, and then I can go ahead and unite those together with the Pathfinder, and that's pretty. It's pretty good, right? So I didn't have to draw like each thing. I didn't have to draw this intersection. Really, I didn't have to trace the inside and the outside. I just had to find that one path. So I can go here and do the same thing again. I could say path, offset. Probably want that to be 325. Pretty good. Same thing here. A little bit bigger. So I can, once you've got something like this, you can say, well, that's not what I wanted. Well, you can grab these points. So I'm using like the direct selection tool. I can click on this, and I can kind of pull this into it. Let's go ahead and erase this piece here. And these I can also kind of unify together. And then once I've got this, I should be able to explode it in a way that lets me access the different lines of it, so that I can kind of open up these ends again, so that they're just actually clean lines. Sorry, actually you can't really explode something, but what you can do is you can remove a segment by using the direct selection tool. If you just click and drag over just the segment, you can press delete and that'll remove it. Illustrator is not exactly the same as AutoCAD. Like it doesn't have quite the same kinds of line editing functions that we're used to, but still pretty powerful. So we're just going to go ahead and erase those. And you don't want to erase anything that might participate in, like I wouldn't start erasing things until you're done kind of with your union. Union really only works on shapes that are closed. But I am just kind of showing you how to clean this up, like once you've kind of finished that. The other thing you can do is actually cut a shape, so you can go into your tools here. And I never remember where these are. Eventually you'll find it. Yeah, scissors. And you can just put it on a line, and anywhere you click will actually cut that object, and then you can just erase those pieces. It's not a great method, but that's how you do that. And then, once you've got all these lines selected, you can go back and adjust the weights again to the way they're supposed to look. But not a bad method. It seems to be an issue here. So if you got two lines that are, looks like they're kind of in trouble. Let's see if I need to join these. So I can select them and I can say join. Yeah, it doesn't want to do that. Let's see here. That looks like a problem though. Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm seeing some other things too. So you can go in with your tools and kind of clean some. Yeah, I guess there was kind of a glitch there. Sometimes when you're having overlapping lines with each other, you can run these kind of glitches. So removing some of the extra points can kind of help you. There's a rogue point right there. Get rid of that one. Yeah. So, and you kind of develop a sense of these things over time. Like when I was looking at the object, I mean, if you see that there's kind of an error with it, like kind of an artifact, there's some kind of extra geometry in there somewhere. I just made my problem show up again. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what's causing that. It might be some kind of a glitch, but well, worst case, you might just have to redraw that one piece, or like I'm doing here, I'm actually adjusting this other piece because I don't know. It might be because this is such a small drawing. Close enough though to be good enough. Maybe you can adjust that to compensate. Okay. So the other, if you're going to do something like this, you just have to think in terms of I think I accidentally turned on perspective here. Not exactly. That's what these lines are. Must have hit a key. Oh yeah, gee whiz. Let me turn that off. Let's hide grid. There. Okay. Now, since these are drawings, again, you can actually make nice use of the white fill. So instead of actually trimming out some of these things, since we're just going to be printing them, you can actually just fill them and send them to the front, and then they will just show up on top of the piece you want them to show up on top of. And that can be really useful too. And get you out of some jams. So if you're just doing something like this, right? You want to think in terms of this. So in terms of the addition and the sort of like subtraction. So you could use the rectangle tool to draw these boxes, which again you can kind of make like alt copies of if you need to. Sizes of them aren't even though, but anyway, it's probably just a scan of the picture. Draw your path across it, offset it, and then use the Pathfinder tools to make the subtraction in the form. But again, go ahead and use the pieces that you have here to be consistent in terms of the weights you apply. I mean, this might be one set of weights. Like you might use a weight for the diagram of the diagram, and you might use a separate, kind of lighter weight for this. Or I wouldn't use too many weights though. I would be very consistent. So I would probably just use like one kind of heavyweight and maybe one lightweight, or a heavyweight, a lightweight, and a kind of construction weight or like an imaginary weight. But you definitely don't want to be finicky. Like this is essentially all drawn with the same pen as is this, and that's kind of the idea of your own drawings. So just experiment, try to be consistent, play with the pen tool, get really good at understanding curves, understand how to create compound objects with things, how to make subtractions, how to add things together. Um, Remember that you can use white as a kind of a cheap kind of fix, so you don't have to like actually make so many trims in a drawing. But do try to exert some good craft. Try to get your curves to look right, to be really clean. Use as few points as possible, and we'll take a look at it when you guys come back with me on Wednesday. Thanks. Bye.